Amen. And the work of justice belongs to God. Ultimately, it's God who brings the rescue. It's God that brings that healing and restoration by using all of us in this room, His people, to accomplish the work. So we also have individuals that commit to pray on a regular basis. They pray every week. So this prayer list that Tonique has and KJ and the rest of the staff goes to the Sisters of Carondelet and other prayer warriors in the community. Have a place on the church website for prayer requests. And then have corporate prayer monthly. So lift up the police officers, lift up judges, social workers, service providers, and churches who are providing the frontline support to those coming out of the traffic situation, and those that are doing outreach for our unsheltered individuals. In Minnesota, we don't use the word homeless anymore. I'm trying to get all this straight. We call them unsheltered. And work with them. And yeah, give it to God. You know, we have to go through a lot of, we see a lot of trauma on a daily basis. Okay, we all bring with our own trauma. Years and years of exploitation. Years and years of heinous things that happen to us. We have compound trauma. But we have a lot of resiliency as well. A lot of resiliency. The one thing that I look for in my staff, because God has put me in this position right now, is to make sure that we have the right amount of self-care. So if someone needs to leave for whatever reason they need to go, you take care of your family. We've had staff we had 2 children, a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old die this year. Kids of our staff. Maybe that means you take 6 months off. You know, maybe you take a year off, whatever it takes to get you back there. But you need to do the self-care. And then make sure that we're not too resilient, because if we are, there's probably something that's happening. And that would be called compassion fatigue or something else. So we have to take care of ourselves. Easier said than done. So we covered most of what we have on this sheet right here. The financial support is the only other thing that we didn't cover. And that's what we need more than anything. And something that you can all do today is support those 3 individuals that were up here earlier. Give money to those organizations. That's really what we need, is the money. Survivor-led organizations get 40% less funding than non-survivor organizations. It's very hard for us to get federal grants now, because there's so many other people that are coming up and doing the same thing we're doing. Yes?
I kind of have an example of that. We had, this past Thanksgiving, we had one of the mothers from, I can't remember which college it was, Concordia. One of the mothers had contacted me, and she said, hey, I wanted to do something for the ladies in housing. Are there any ladies who possibly don't have any food or anything for Thanksgiving? And I reached out to them, and she brought over these cute little centerpieces and gift cards to the grocery store. She also had gravy in there, so paper plates, and things like that nature. So sometimes just asking specifically what does your organization need to assist with your clients, that helps a lot.
And baby showers. We have baby showers. The churches put on baby showers for our women, and it's not just for your first child, it's for every child. And that's important. Yep.
Can you take questions now?
Yes, we can take questions now. First of all, I want to ask, did anyone learn anything today? Okay, good, because I want to make sure that we're bringing a value. And your feedback is important for us. We do a lot of presentations. I think I've done 250 of them in the last 4 years. So it's a lot. It's God's work. It's going out there, whether you're tired or not. It's laying it all out there. I mean, you know more about me than most of my family, just by what I've talked about today, because it's really difficult working with my family. They still have the, well, why don't you pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Shut up. You don't know anything about colonization. You don't know anything about oppression. You don't know anything. You are total people of privilege, so it's really hard sometimes to go back to our families and talk. Questions? Did you have a question, sir? Oh, you said you learned something. Good. That's what's up. Yes, sir.
So when it comes to like pornography, so a lot of the problem is that a lot of people are already addicted.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, somehow by the grace of God, I never got into porn, and like that's kind of ideal. But I kind of find them at a loss when somebody's already addicted. And, like,
That is a super good question.
Yeah, that's
Jeremy.
like, how do you get them out of denial or something? Sometimes they don't think they're addicted, right?
Well, and a lot of people think pornography is
I
harmless.
think it's acceptable, you know.
Yeah, no, we get that, just like we do in the trafficking world. A lot of girls, some girls think that it's okay and that it's called sex work. We don't believe it's either sex or work. But there are resources. So just like AA, see, this is the deal. You can't go to AA and say, been in prostitution, I'm a porn addict, I purchase women for sex. You can't say that. That's not the forum for that, right? But there are special groups. There are, I don't know what they're called, but if you Google Sex Anonymous. Yeah, SA, Sex Anonymous. I would encourage that. But it's really hard to talk about it. But if there's a lady by the name of Gail Dines. Where'd Jean go? She just took off. How many of you know who Gail Dines is? Nobody in this room. Look her up. She's out of Boston. She does a lot of work on pornography. She's come to Minnesota several times and had some conferences and talks about the dynamics and the physiological components of it. It's tough. It's a tough subject, Jeremy. It's really tough. Even in the church, because pornography is 50% of people in the church look at pornography too. It's the same population outside of the church as inside of the church. So, but I would look under Sex Anonymous. Yes?
So there's an organization back east called XXX, and these are men who have faced their pornography addictions. Do you know about them? Yeah, they drive around parking lots. I feel like it really needs men to address this with men, and that'd be a great model to bring to the Midwest.
And that's exactly where Gail lives. So I don't know if she has something to do with that or not, but that's exactly right. It needs to be the men that are talking about it. You need to talk to your boys about it, and girls even. I mean, because if you look at Pornhub and look at who's looking at the porn and the ages, there's even girls that are getting, and that's how we're taught a lot of times. Those are our teaching videos when we first get into the life.
I was just going to say XXX Church is actually an online forum for people. It's not like an actual church.
Well, there was a group of guys that started with a big van that had XXX written on the side and parked in parking lots, and when people came up to talk to them. So that might be different than the online group. Maybe they merged or maybe they grew, but that was way, I mean, I'm talking 25 years ago that started. And I think it still exists.
I hope it does.
Yeah, and they go to porn conventions and set up booths, and they hand out Jesus Loves Porn Stars t-shirts and Bibles. And yeah, so there are tons of resources online for them. They even have the safety filters that you can put on your computer to help make you accountable.
Yeah, but I really advocate for this 24-hour line. I know, you all probably are anxious to get phone calls in the middle of the night, but one of the things we can say is, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? Are you a runner? Let's go run around one of the lakes. Let's just go do something and get them up and have the relationship. And have a forum where they can come in and talk. So our Men Breaking Free program, our John School, is once a month. And it's for 8 hours, but that's not it. We have circles every month where people can come back, and they do now. They do know because it's not shame-based. They want to talk a little bit more about what the heck's going on, or say, you know what, I still, I heard what you said, but I still got these thoughts. I still need help processing. Let's talk about this. And again, it's not AA. Because you can't disclose, you're going to be judged in AA for that.
I just feel like even listening, imagining having conversations about like pornography openly in the church setting is like, I can feel the anxiety of the church members. I can feel like the culture of silence so like talking about sexual exploitation is much more acceptable now within the church culture, but looking at the roots of where it begins, it's like, especially as a woman, especially as a single young woman, like I can't talk about it. Like they're like, you're gonna like tempt us just by talking about pornography. Like don't even go there. I just feel a lot of like inability to be effective and like almost like they're just adding to the problem if you bring, like I can't even imagine having those conversations.
Well, there are films, there's films that you could bring, and have special times where you could talk about it. Yes, sir?
Our church, we've had a couple studies where men get together and talk about pornography and book study and stuff, so it is possible.
That's what's
and
up,
also
William.
it's so sectionalized. Like all the men can talk about it, all the women, like but no one like addresses it and like repents. Like we don't just confess to our problems with that.
Well, guess what, Mandy?
What?
It's time for you to take that high road. You think it's easy for us every day talking about penises and vaginas and all the things that happen? No, it isn't, but it's something that we have to talk about because we can't just skirt this issue talking about just sex trafficking. We need to talk about what is happening behind closed doors. And I spared y'all for that today. I spared you. But that's what we need to talk about.
No more
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, our church is not certainly ideal at all, but I think what we've tried to do is recognize that we're all broken, we're all sinners, and so we have a variety of different programs for people who are addiction. People who are going through divorce, people who've lost children, and so, and then but one of them is also for pornography. And so there are, again, it's the idea is to say it's we deal with all these things. We're all broken, and it's not public. I think in my time that one guy stand up in front of the congregation and talk about pornography addiction because it's not something that's easy to talk about.
No, it's not.
But we've also probably only had maybe one person talk about divorce care. But again, it seems to me the church has to deal with people where they all fall short. And
Right.
fall short in many
Absolutely. And you got two good case studies right here. So next time I come, I want to hear about your groups. I want to hear how you're doing it. None of this is easy. You think it's easy for us to come up here and identify that we've been in prostitution? For God's sake, when I was growing up, I thought, oh my gosh, why would anyone want to admit that they were in it? And after a while, it was like, God calls us and uses us. He didn't want us to go through what we went through. And most of us are never going to heal from what we went through. But we do know that we can move forward. And we're doing this because this is our ministry to you and to society. Because if we don't get up and talk about this, we are just still part of the problem and not the solution. And we're all called, every one of you that's in this room is called here today to hear something. And to take something and bring it with you. And that's all we're trying to do today, is just to talk about the realities from our experience. We have a lot more survivors back at Breaking Free. We have Native survivors, we have more African American survivors, we have LGBTQ survivors. We try to embody the folks that we serve. We want to be representative, our board, our staff. So with the panel before you were talking about, you need to consider that. If 69% of your population is African American, you better have 69% of your staff African American. If you got, Native, the whole Native thing in Minnesota is it's a an epidemic right now. I don't know if you all know about it, but there's a lot of missing and murdered Indigenous folks. We have tent cities all over the place. We have ladies that on a regular basis are shot with what do you call it? Fentanyl, and then someone comes back and gets them back with the Narcan, but not always. Sometimes they just let them die because who cares? Who cares about that population? But we got a really high population in the Twin City area, and we do a lot of outreach, and we have people that sleep in tents all winter long. All winter long. And I'm going to tell you, the temperature here is just a little bit colder in Minnesota than it is here. Not a lot, but you know it's cold here. So could you imagine sleeping in a tent all winter long? But that's the reality. That's the reality.
A big thing in the wintertime, what we do is with the hand warmers and
Yes.
the feet warmers. When I did outreach, I'm sitting there like handing out water bottles, and until someone came up to me and was like, "That's gonna freeze later."
Yeah.
You know, so just like also being mindful of like things that you hand out in the weather.
Yeah, and when you go to do outreach in the winter, bring big vats of hot chocolate or tea or coffee. Start a garbage can on fire and roast hot dogs or something. But don't just do outreach in the summer months when it's convenient. Do it all year round. That's why I was talking about Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. Where are we? What are we doing? What are we doing on those days? How are we lifting people up? This is 24/7, 365. We got to be there. And you know what? One of the greatest things is that smile. Just a smile, to bring that love, to bring that attention to someone. Because y'all know in here, we all know that if we don't experience the agape love, not the phileo, not the eros, not the other kinds of love, but it's got to be that agape love. If we don't know what that is, we can't give it away. So invest in yourselves. Heal yourselves, like they said before. Heal yourself. Find out what that is so that we can give God's unconditional love back. Whether you're able to get out of the life today or willing or want to or not, it doesn't matter because we love you the way Jesus loves you. Any more questions? Yes, sir.